Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hi, it's Jessa here. Welcome to another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. I'm here every week trying to bring you information and ideas and inspiration and maybe even entertainment in an endeavor to help you improve your intimate relationship, your sex life, and your partnership. I think that's really important. That's why I spend my time doing this. And each week I'm trying to find a different guest or a different topic to maybe bring a new angle to what we're talking about. So if you have looked through my episodes, you'll see there's a huge variety, and you probably find some segment of them interesting and some not so much, maybe not relevant to you. But I'm always looking for some new angle. And today we are talking about a strategy, an approach, or an idea that helps when we're feeling depleted and overwhelmed and almost literally burned out. You know, it's about stoking our internal fire. It's about self-care, about energizing ourselves, overcoming the burdens, and finding a way to be more fully ourselves so that we can engage with our partner. So today I'm talking to Amanda Testa, who is a sex, love, and relationship expert, and she's the founder of Find Your Feminine Fire. So she bridges sort of tantric tools combined with neuroscience to help women, mostly women, get past unworthiness and move into confidence and radiance and vitality and sort of light their feminine fire. So today she's here sharing really her process and strategies about how to do that. And then we talk about how relevant that is to sex and our sexual relationships too. I hope you enjoy the episode. Amanda, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here with you today.
I was hoping you could start by just talking a little bit about yourself and what you do, and especially what got you into the work.
Oh, yes, that's a great question. I was not one of those who knew from a young age what it was I wanted to do. So I love how my path kind of led me to where I am today. But my story actually starts, as many do, with my own personal experience. And I actually was in corporate sales for most of my career. And when my daughter was born, I decided to stay home with her, which was a beautiful thing. And I got to kind of follow more of my passions around health and wellness. And one of the things that I did was I became a personal trainer and started teaching Stroller Strides, which is a workout that you do at the park with your kid. I don't know if you
That sounds great. No, I've never heard of that.
Have they have it in where you are, but basically it was a really great thing because for so many new mamas, you know, it's just building that community and taking care of yourself. So that was lovely. But one of the things that I also heard all the time and had my own struggles with was just, you know, feeling like a woman again, connecting with your sexuality again, and, you know, the struggles of, you know, having sex again after you have a child and all these things.
Right.
So I found for myself that I kind of went into a little bit of a depression when my daughter was around 18 months old, and I felt like I was doing all the right things for myself. You know, I was exercising, I was involved in the community, I was eating well, but I was still something really deep was missing. And although my husband and I, we always had a pretty good connection, I had never really delved deeply into any kind of sexuality work. And I just remember one morning just walking into the bathroom and I was just resentful the minute I woke up and looked in the mirror. I was like, who is this woman straight back at me? You know, I really just could not relate to her at all. And I just made a promise to myself that I would follow whatever breadcrumbs came my way to kind of find her again. And it happened, you know, that I came upon this institute and my teacher where I studied for, 4 years and many, many hours. And I realized through that work, it was a lot in working with my sexuality and like uncovering all these things around there. And when I originally signed up, I thought, oh, this would be something fun to spice up the sex life by husband and I. But really what I realized was so much deeper than that, and that our sexuality is so rich. And when we can work in that area, it can just unlock. I feel like it's really this magical key to unlock all kinds of things. So I realized that, this is not something women are taught. This is, I'm a well-educated woman. I didn't know certain
right. Why? Where has this been all my life? Right. Yeah.
Right. So, I just decided that, that this was going to be my life's mission. And so I became certified, and here I am today helping women.
Yeah. Cool. So, I think you're alluding to feminine fire in some ways.
Yes.
when you're back in the bathroom and you're looking in the mirror and thinking, what's missing? Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, yes. That was
okay.
A huge part of it. Mm-hmm.
So what is feminine fire? How do you define what that is, or what you're trying to work on with your clients?
Yeah, I think that our feminine fire, personally, my belief is that we all have this radiance, this vibrance and energy that we're all born with, and just kind of the craziness of our modern life can just dull it out and really stifle it. We're just always so busy trying to manage businesses and jobs and families and partners and all the other million things that are piled on top of us these days. It just kind of gets really dim. And, I think a lot of people call this energy Shakti. It's anything that has Shakti is alive. It's vibrant, it's luminous, it's magnetic and desirable. And really that essence of feeling good, vibrant health in your body, and, feeling your life has meaning and value. And so that's really what I believe feminine fire is. And, the good news is that you can't always get it. You can get it back.
So is that inherently feminine? Is it just for women? Like how, it seems like a lot of this would apply to all people, regardless of,
Yes, it definitely does, regardless of gender. And I typically work with more women, and that's kind of why my focus is a lot around women. But yes, everyone can relate to, feeling like when your spark is totally burned out. I think that can, many people can relate to that, no matter your gender.
Right. But is the energy you're talking about, this vitality, is that sort of feminine energy that both men and women have, or not really? Is this?
Well, we do. We definitely both have it. And, as you understand, we have these different polarities within us. We both have, masculine qualities and feminine qualities, these energies that we need to be whole, right? The yin and yang. And so, but, within our lives, those can get off balance, and when you have an unhealthy, say you have an unhealthy imbalance in those areas, you're going to see that in your day-to-day life. So maybe you have an unhealthy yin, for example. So maybe you are not good at setting boundaries for yourself. Maybe you are, not good at speaking up for your needs. Or alternatively, you can have an unexpressed, unhealthy yang energies where you're not really, maybe you have rage and things like this, which we need all our expressions and all our emotions. But when it's expressed in an unhealthy way, it's not going to serve us or the people that are the recipient of that energy.
Yeah. There's a thing I talk about with clients, which is that we can do the same thing from the best in us or the worst in us. That's a concept I use, so, which is a little different than what you're talking about. But we have these things that serve us as long as we use them well. Exactly. Right? As long as we're in balance.
Oh, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
You think about that. Even something nice, like if you come to someone and say you want to, I like to use the example of like tickling, for example. If someone comes up to you and tickles you and you're not in the mood for that, it is like the worst thing ever. But if you provided it and you're consented to it, then it's like amazing, right?
Yeah. So what are some signs that people are out of balance, or, how might listeners recognize, for some people, I think it's going to be obvious. My fire's out, right? Or I'm really struggling, but what are the ways it shows up if people have not tended to this energy?
Yeah. So what I often see with women is that they are just really burned out. They can feel super overwhelmed, and maybe simple tasks that, shouldn't really stress a person out can feel overwhelming, or they find themselves lashing out at their kids when actually, they're not really upset with their kids, but that is just the trigger that causes this, release of emotion. And then, they drop their kids off at school and they sit in the car, feeling so guilty that they, really lost it on their kids. And they're like, what is making me feel this way? Why am I losing it? I see that often. And, alternatively is that maybe they just have zero desire for intimacy. They, will crawl into bed at night and pretend they're asleep so that the partner doesn't instigate sex or worse, a conversation about why they're not connected.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, those kind of things for sure.
So what are the steps, or what do you have a process? Is there sort of one way of approaching this, like a process that everybody can go through? Or, what would you say about what do people do if this is how they're struggling?
Yeah, I definitely have a process that I see works really well, and it's fairly simple. And, it kind of starts, there's a few steps in the process, but the number one thing is, really reconnecting again to your desires and what it is you actually want. I think for many people in this day and age, we're so busy taking care of everyone else's needs. And, the last person we think about is at the end of the day is ourselves and what we need. And like reconnecting to things that light you up, things that bring you pleasure, things that you're passionate about. That is the first step, really getting clear on what do I like? Reminding yourself, oh yeah, these things bring me joy. These things are things I want in my life, like more of, that kind of thing.
And I can imagine, as you're speaking, I'm sort of translating into the way I work with clients with some of the same concepts, and some people it's like, oh, right, I used to love this, but for some people, they've never known. You know what I mean? Like some people, it's about getting back to something, but for others, it's got to be a whole new discovery, right? Like I've never really discovered passions for myself.
It's so true. And I think that is one of the hardest steps for many women, especially is what do I want? I've never thought about it. That is such a crucial first step. And there's the easy, I like to share, if I may, an easy exercise that I
please
recommend is, literally you set a timer on your phone for 10 minutes, get out a piece of paper, at the top of the paper, write, I want, and then just start writing without censoring yourself, is be as wild and crazy as your imagination wants to go. And, maybe I want to go, on a 2-year vacation by myself around the world, or I want a cup of coffee, or I want to sleep a full night, or whatever it is, the big, the little ones, and just allowing your mind to kind of go crazy with it. And for 10 minutes, just really write those down and think about it. And then at the end of that list, at the end of the 10 minutes, you can review your list and really kind of look and see, all right, what would realistically something I could bring to life this week? Or maybe if you have, a desire to leave and, run away for a while, maybe it's not really that you're looking to run away. Maybe it's that you're looking to feel some more freedom in your life. And what could you do to add that in? So maybe it's call a friend to watch your kids for a couple of hours, or a babysitter, and, just spend 2 hours taking a walk or doing something by yourself that you feel that sense of freedom, of looking at what ways you could bring it into your life in an accessible way.
Right. And I would have to imagine that some people are going to have to overcome sitting there and looking at a blank piece of paper for a while, like just feeling stumped, or they write down, I just want to crawl in bed and pull the covers over my head, right?
Totally.
That it may be a little bit before you get some more proactive ideas about what you might want to do.
Oh yeah. That's why I like the 10 minutes. Yeah,
exactly. Force yourself to spend 10 minutes.
It takes a while to get
Don't
going.
give up a minute or two into this.
Oh yes.
Yeah. That's a great exercise. And it brings up a good point, which is we have to do these things on purpose, right? None of us, especially if we're talking about being burned out and overwhelmed, and, especially if we're parents, if that's what's going on, it's not like there's a bunch of free time. And this is easy to just, I'll take up Samba, lessons or something. We're going to have to put some energy, some creativity and some energy, and maybe some money. And, we're going to have to make some investment in making these changes too.
Yeah. But I'm sure, as you often see with your clients probably, is that, if you want something to flourish and to thrive, you have to nourish it.
Right.
And that comes with the relationship that you have with yourself as well as with your partner or whoever it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it takes intention, and it means something's got to give. Where are you going to put this in your day and in your week and in your life? It's got to fit somewhere,
Right.
Okay, so what's the next step?
So the next step is kind of learning how to get back into your body. And my favorite way to talk about this and to really make it accessible is just literally connecting with your senses again, because our sensuality is, really the basis of that is connecting with our senses and connecting to the world through these 5 senses that we have. So really finding a way to activate all of your senses on a regular basis. And I think you can create rituals around this. I can share a meditation that I have around this, later if you'd like. But, it could be as simple as whatever you're doing. This is the thing. Easy and simple is implementable, right? So
Yeah.
what are you already doing and how can you add more intention behind it? So say, for example, when you're eating your meal, take a moment to fully engage each sense while you enjoy your meal. Look at the different colors and what are the different textures of the food and what are the different flavors that you're noticing? What are the smells? How does it feel to put it in your mouth? Really just kind of connecting to those sensations.
Yeah.
I think is an easy way to do that. Whenever you can just really stop, drop down into your body and just connect with each sensation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, it doesn't have to be some additional, you're already going to eat, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like multitasking. Let's make the most of the things that we are doing and bring that sort of mindfulness and awareness to presence to our experience. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I also, I think another great place to do that is in the shower or when you're getting dressed, because I think for so many of us, we're just rushing. And it's just like, wash, get out, hurry, get to the meeting or wherever you're going.
Right.
But just taking that minute to just drop in and like enjoying the hot water on your skin, just feeling grateful for this hot water and, enjoying the smell of your soap and how it feels to wash your body and, just being intentional about kind of bathing yourself with some appreciation, which I know can feel really hard and cheesy at first. But, when you really think to send some kindness to your body while you wash it, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me. Another wonderful place to do this practice is in intimate contact with ourselves or with our partner.
Yes.
Right? Like, how do you bring in all of your senses and maybe slow down a little bit and pay attention and don't just kind of rush through or be on autopilot?
Oh, that is so true. And I think that's one of the best ways, I'm sure you hear this a lot, is people will tell me, well, I just can't stop thinking about my to-do list when I'm having sex, or I can't stop thinking about, I see this pile of laundry in the corner. It's like, when you can take that moment and instead, what do you smell? What are you feeling in your body? What are you touching on your partner? Like dropping into those sensations in the moment.
Yeah. And it takes practice, or at least it can really take practice. Yeah.
And it is a practice, I think. And, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just taking a quick little break in the middle of the show. Most of you probably know, if you've been listening at all, that I have written a new book called Sex Without Stress. But what you may not know is that I have developed an online course to support you through the process. The book has a lot in it. It's a do-it-yourself process to totally transform your sex life, but it's hard to do it. And it's hard to do it alone without support. So I have been looking for a way to create an environment that's supportive and could help you actually get the stuff done. So what I've done is create an 8-week course. There are webinars that you can watch live or you can watch later. There's materials, there are exercises and directions, and then I'm going to offer live online office hours. This is where you can get questions answered and get input on your situation. It's not therapy, but it's a place to come and help you move through the process. The next cohort starts January 28th, 2019, taking enrollment all the way up until then. You can learn more at sexwithoutstress.com. Easy to find the online course information there if you want some more information. I would love to have you join me. Okay, is there another step?
And so, and again, with that checking into your body and like learning how to get into your body, I like to just remind people to kind of get into the habit. And again, easy. You can do it before you get out of the bed in the morning or just whenever you think about it, like really kind of scan your body. I like to call it a body meditation where you just take a moment and you just kind of scan your body from head to toe and just say out loud what experiences, what sensations you're noticing. So if it's, I have a tightness in my right shoulder, or I have a tingling in my, left pinky, or whatever the sensation is, just speak it aloud. And doing that, when you actually say it out loud, it just kind of works a little bit differently in the brain to connect your sensations to what you're experiencing, and like kind of gets all parts of the brain on board there to really learn what it feels like to be in your body.
That's interesting, because I've heard of the body scan or, that concept before, but I've never before heard to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm. it just helps that rewiring process to feel sensation more deeply.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be the next step. And then, another thing too is, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, is I think a big part of reconnecting to the fire within is just being kind to yourself in the process, because it's not always easy and it can take time. But, how can you be more aware of that voice inside that may be critical and choose to find the empowered part of you, and how you can connect with that part of you on a regular basis? Really strengthening the part of you that can be kind to yourself, and letting that part run the show more often.
Do you have an exercise for that too? Because that sounds a lot like various things I say to clients, which, it's sort of easy to say. But how do people do that?
Yeah, actually, you know what? One of the ways that I kind of teach women and people to do this in general is, if you take a moment to kind of feel into your body, into a place that feels good, like maybe it can take some time to feel into, but there's always a part of you that can feel good. Sometimes for me, it's my heart. Sometimes it's my feet randomly, but kind of feeling into where it feels good and comfortable, and just allowing that to expand a little bit. Because I feel when I do this through breath. So, maybe breathing into that spot on the inhale, feeling that expand, and on the exhale, allowing it to kind of take up more space in your body. And so the more you can kind of strengthen this part of you, the more it's able to accept the other parts of you. And it's okay for those pieces to be there. There's this great part in Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, where she talks about how fear can just be one of the many pieces that like to rear their heads. But, just allowing them to have their say and say, all right, I appreciate you sharing that. And she says, fear can sit in the back seat, but it can't touch the radio or drive the car.
Right.
So kind of the same thing where, the more you just allow, if that voice comes up, be like, yeah, I appreciate you telling me that you don't like my outfit, but I know that I look good in this outfit and I appreciate your opinion, but, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to change my clothes, right?
Mm-hmm. And just the more you strengthen that part, because the inner critic really is somehow connected to a piece of your subconscious that is in some way trying to protect you. Like at some point in your life, this was created to protect you. So just understanding that you can just kind of give it a new job.
Yeah. And it's reminding me too of the science that shows that we see what we look for, right? So what we pay attention to gets amplified.
Exactly.
So it's one thing to sort of hear the voice and then let it go, but be actively seeking the more positive voices or the more positive feelings or the more positive, when we go scanning for that, we will find more of that and then give it more power.
Exactly.
Is there another step in your process? I have no idea how many steps there are.
Yes,
So I guess I'll just keep asking you until you say, there are no more steps.
No, there's 5. So the first one we talked about was, connecting with your desires. The second one is activating your sensuality. The third, really getting in touch with your body. And the fourth, empowering that voice that's going to be kind. And then the final one is really giving yourself permission to feel, all feelings, all sensations, everything is okay. And the more you can fully embody the sensations, the more you can choose how to react. Our culture has really taught us to only display good emotions, right? Mm-hmm. You're not really ever allowed to fully rage. I mean, granted, you don't always want to, but you want to allow a space for that. So, when you give yourself space to really feel your emotions, then you really have a more full experience and expression of all the emotions that you'll experience. So more powerfully, you'll also experience joy, love, and compassion. And one of the things I like to teach around this is, there's kind of some easy practices where I like to say, if you are angry and you have the opportunity, you can, put on a song that you could just like rage to for a minute. Or if you don't have the opportunity to do that, you can always go to the bathroom and like scream silently into your hands. You can have all the energy and behind it, but it's quiet, right? But you can still allow that to express.
Yeah.
And I think, the more you kind of pay attention again to what you're experiencing in your body when you have an emotion, it's an interesting thing to note. Because, for example, I can just feel into when I feel anxiety. What does anxiety feel like in my body? For me, I feel like a real tightness in my chest. I feel like I can't take as deep of a breath, so a shortness of breath. I feel like sometimes a tingling in my fingers. And for me, I'm like, okay, that's anxiety. I know what that feels like in my body. So what can I do about that? Well, I know for me, I can do some parasympathetic breathing, for example. So you have your exhale longer than your inhale. So you can inhale for 4, exhale for 8, something like that. And just allow that sensation to kind of move throughout your body a little bit. Because really, when you can kind of take the emotion and deconstruct it a little bit to the sensations, it's easier to let that flow through. And then at the end, you can kind of, again, connect to that empowered part of you, the part that's really strong and that knows you can do anything. And you can kind of reconnect to that at the end of your raging experience or, anxiety experience or whatever it is that you need to flow through.
Yeah. It also seems to me that if people get very clear on, oh, that's anxiety, it helps realize that this is a passing physical state. It's an emotion, right? It's not the end of the world.
Right.
We're not necessarily facing danger that's life-threatening right this moment. It's like, oh, this is just my body responding to something, and I can feel this move through me, and I can pay attention, but I also don't have to believe this is how it's always going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can more choose how to respond versus react when you have that awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a broad question, but how does all this apply to sexuality, our relationship with our partner?
Yes. And that is a beautiful question. And reason I like to kind of start with kind of connecting to yourself is because you have to understand for you what feels good and have a good relationship with yourself before you can really bring that into your partnership. Because and that's what I love about relationship. It is such a beautiful place if you allow it to be, of growth. And it's not always pretty, but if you're willing to be committed to work through whatever comes up, you can emerge on the other hand so much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So, how one of the reasons this, really goes hand in hand with sex is because when you are really connected to yourself and your needs and your desires, it's much more easier to speak those. And part of what I teach women through my process too, and when you're really learning to kind of be in your body, is to take time to create a sensual self-care practice for yourself, sensual self-pleasuring on a regular basis, and finding a way you can do that. And again, it doesn't always have to take much time. If you have 5 minutes, how you could, create something that you can do in 5 minutes. Maybe it's just putting on a song that makes you feel good and just moving your body and like touching your body in a sensual way. Or if you have longer, you can, set up the whole scene, and light some candles and take a bath and lovingly massage yourself and do, a lot of self-pleasure in a way that feels good.
You're not necessarily talking about masturbation to orgasm, right? I mean, when I think of self-pleasure, that's the way I typically use that phrase. But you're talking about really, it could include that, right? But a broader kind of sensual experience.
Yes. And it can definitely include that. And I think, the masturbation piece can be a really fun part of it, but maybe you don't want that. And that's okay. I want you to be able to have a definition that fits you so that it's something that you don't always have to feel like there's an end goal in mind. It's just of honoring yourself and like connecting to your turn on in whatever way feels good.
Yeah.
Because when you have that, because I think so many times in relationships, people are kind of thinking you're going to go from 0 to 60, and that's hard to do. Right. But if you already have some level of feeling good in your body, then maybe you're just going from 30 to 60, right? You already have a little bit of this juice moving, this fire moving in your body, and it feels good.
I love the phrase of, see if I can repeat it, but sensual self-care practice,
Yes.
that self-care, there's so many different spheres of it, but that whole to pay attention to your sensuality on a regular basis. That makes total sense to me, that's part of self-care.
I like to joke that it's, you need your daily dose of vitamin P. Like pleasure or passion or whatever you want, whatever P you want to use here. Because it's such a big part of adding color and flavor to our life, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what would you, what would be the takeaway you would hope that listeners would take today? If they were going to, get one message here, what would you want that to be?
I think what I really want people to know is that if you are feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like you're you're struggling, that your life absolutely does not have to be that way. The beautiful thing is all of these are learned skills. Sex is a learned skill. Communication, to have a good relationship, is a learned skill. Learning to, have a better relationship with yourself and creating this sensual self-care practices, all those are learned, right? So we just have never been taught. So I feel like, it's no wonder that we struggle.
Right.
We've never been taught how to do these things.
Right.
Understanding that, it's never too late to learn something new. And if you are able to take the time to get your fire stoked again, knowing all these practices really flow into harmonious relationships. Because if you're taking the time to care for yourself and taking responsibility to get your needs met, you're not expecting all this from your partner. And by receiving this love from yourself, you're better able to receive love from your partner and to appreciate them and what they bring to your life.
Yeah. So, as well as to give,
Exactly. Yeah. It's this beautiful infinity loop, right?
Right. Right. So where can people learn more about you?
Yes, you can find me at my website, amandatesta.com. I also have a podcast called Find Your Feminine Fire Podcast, where we talk a lot about these topics and sex and relationships as well. And, I mentioned before, if you would like to check out any of these practices in more detail, you could go to my website. It's Amanda Testa, TESTA.com/fire, and you can access the practices I talked about.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the episode with me.
I am so grateful to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get to know you and question and answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.